Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Banished and Become Harem Master, Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. Now let's start the fanfic. The early morning sky was blocked from dark gray clouds. Some dense fog surrounded the forest, concealing the village ahead. The air was damp from the late night rain. The man walked down the muddy path, his plated boots making a squishing sound with each step he took. The man was about 6 feet tall. He carried a two-handed blade with him. His blade had blue aura emitting off of it. His cloak covered his head, blocking his eyes. The village Darien told me about should be dead ahead, the man muttered. Rain began to fall as the man continued his walk. Shortly after the rain came, the man found himself looking up at the large gate to the village. A symbol above the gate had kanji on it reading, Konoha. The man entered the gate and was stopped by two voices. Halt, spoke the first. Yes. The man asked. Do you have a reason to be here? I've come to speak to someone known as the Hokage. Where can I find him? That depends. Are you here on diplomatic reasons? The second guard asked. Yes. And so I can get moving. Here's my passport, the man replied, tossing them his passport. The guard caught it and frowned at the man. He looked at the papers before handing them back. Okay. The Hokage Tower is down this road, the first guard informed. Thank you, the man said, walking down the road. A couple blocks away, a large mob of villagers and shinobi were chasing a blonde-haired boy. Many of them were holding various weapons and spouting words of anger. The boy was wearing a black t-shirt and orange pants. He had deep blue eyes, 3 whisker marks on each cheek, and spiky blonde hair. He turned a corner, only to be caught in a dead end. He backed up against the wall and shook with fright. The villagers were soon upon him. The boy cried out in pain as a kunai entered his thigh. The villagers grinned wickedly as they heard his cries of anguish. It hurts, doesn't it? A chunin sneered. What did I do? The boy yelped. You killed our 4th Hokage, and a lot of shinobi. Yelled a woman. Die, demon. A junin bellowed. Help. The boy cried. The man was a few blocks away from his objective before he heard shouts. The man stopped and scanned the area for the source of the noise. He was about to continue, but he heard someone scream. Help me. Someone. Anyone. The voice yelled. Although the man was on a mission, he decided to see what was going on. He hurried down the road and rounded the corner to see a mob of people in the alley. Through the mass of people, he could see a boy who was beaten and bloody, lying motionless. The man was both shocked and disgusted at the sight. The man felt his anger rise at the shinobi and villagers in front of him. Time to die, demon! Yelled a shinobi. The shinobi tossed a kunai at the boy's head. By this time, the man had seen enough. He vanished and appeared in front of the kunai. There was a clang as the kunai hit the man in the chest and fell to the ground. The mob looked at the man guarding the demon and glared. What the hell are you doing to this boy? The man asked. We're doing this village a favor and killing that demon. A villager spat. So, you're killing a defenseless child then? He is going to kill us all. We need to kill him first. A shinobi yelled. There was a deadly pause as the man looked at the boy then at the mob. He turned to the mob and glared at them under his hood. I can't let you do that, the man said darkly. He grabbed the hilt of his blade and pulled it out. The neon runes of the blade shone brightly, its aura flared dangerously. Then we'll have to kill you too, shouted a villager. The shinobi sent killing intent at the swordsman. The man blinked and smirked. These idiots had absolutely no idea what he was capable of. He felt his bloodlust get the better of him. You call that killing intent? The man asked, sounding amused. Try this in for size. He roared. He released all his anger into his killing intent. The reaction he got was perfect. The temperature dropped to absolute zero. Everyone could see their breath in front of them. The villagers cowered in fear and fell to their knees. The shinobi were doing no better. The majority of them were petrified with terror from the man in front of them. Kill him, Quick! Barked a shinobi. A few villagers and shinobi charged the man. The man grinned malevolently and raised his palm. Howling blast! He roared. All of the charging villagers and shinobi fell dead after being hit by a wave of frozen wind and ice. The mob stared wide-eyed at the man. Kill him, you idiots! The shinobi ordered again. The man held his hand out towards the shinobi. A purple arm shot out of his hand and darted towards the shinobi. The hand wrapped around the shinobi and yanked him to the man. The shinobi landed in front of the man and was decapitated in a flash. What's going on here? A voice demanded. Everyone turned to see an old man with white robes and a hat, with two masked shinobi on either side of him. Lord Hokage, this man is killing us. A villager shouted. Yeah, we were minding our own business and he interfered by protecting the demon. Shrieked a woman with pink hair. The Hokage glared at the woman and looked at the man protecting the boy. Anbu, get your squads rounded up and take these fools to the interrogation chambers. Barked the Hokage. Hi, Hokage-sama, nodded an Anbu. The villagers and remaining shinobi scattered. The Hokage walked to the man who picked the boy up. Are you the messenger of the Aben Blade? The Hokage asked. The man turned to him and gave a curt nod. Yes, I'm a knight of the Aben Blade. My name is Grimes. The man informed. The Hokage nodded and placed a hand on Grimes' shoulder. Let's continue this conversation in my office, the Hokage muttered. The two of them vanished from the alley, via a shunshin. The two of them appeared in an old office. Grimes carried the boy and set him gently on the couch. He turned and walked to a chair in front of the desk. The Hokage sat in his chair and lit his pipe. Grimes sat down and faced the Hokage. So, I see you have met the village pariah. The Hokage inquired. The kid? Grimes asked, pointing his thumb back at the boy. Yes, thank you for saving him. This is the third time this week. Grimes was shocked at the Hokage's statement. If you don't mind me asking, Grimes began. Why do they hate him so much? If I tell you, it must not be voiced or I'll have you killed on sight, understood? Judging by the seriousness of your voice, I'll take your word for it. The Hokage told Grimes the story of the Kyuubi and the fourth Hokage sealing it into the boy, now dubbed Naruto, into him. I guess it would make sense that he chose his son for being the vessel, Grimes said, rubbing his eyes. How did you figure that out? The Hokage hissed. Come on, I'm not that stupid. The kid looks just like the fourth, you'd have to be a complete moron not to see that, Grimes replied. Well, I guess there's no hiding it, but he cannot know of this until he is older. The Hokage grunted. But we will continue this topic later. But for now, we should talk about our alliance. Good idea. Darien will be off his rocker if I didn't talk about the subject at hand. After they finished their conversation concerning their alliance, they heard a groan coming from the couch. Oji-san, Naruto asked, looking at the pair of them. Hey, Naruto, how are you feeling? Asked the Hokage. I'm okay, Naruto lied, pulling his knees to his chest. The Hokage frowned at this and walked over to Naruto. He sat down by Naruto and placed a hand on his shoulder. Naruto, what happened today? Well, I failed the graduation test, again, Naruto murmured. Don't worry, you can take it again, the Hokage replied. I guess, but I don't have the ability because the instructors sabotage my training. Why didn't you tell me? I'd have made sure you had the attention you needed. I tried, but your attorney said you were never available. Damn it. Grimes looked at Naruto then the Hokage. This kid, he's had a rough life. I can change that, thought Grimes. Lord Hokage, can I ask you something? Grimes requested. Go ahead, Grimes, the Hokage replied. Is Naruto still in the orphanage like you told me? No, they kicked me out today, Naruto interjected. If it isn't too much trouble, Hokage-sama, Grimes began, I'd be willing to adopt Naruto if you'll let me. The Hokage looked up with wide eyes then beamed. Naruto looked up and tears began to swell up in his eyes. Really? Naruto croaked. Come here, Naruto. Give your big brother a hug, Grimes replied. Naruto lunged at Grimes and tackled him into a bear hug. Grimes laughed at his little brother's reaction and ruffled his hair. Thank you, Grimes, the Hokage said, giving a small bow. No problem. I have one more request though, Grimes replied. What would that be? I would like your permission to allow me to train Naruto to become a Death Knight. It will take about 6 years, and we will be back on his 13th birthday. Very well. When he comes back he won't be pushed around by the villagers. Grimes nodded. He also mentioned that Naruto will become a shinobi after passing the test when he returns. The Hokage nodded and handed Grimes the papers for adoption. As Grimes signed the papers, the Hokage returned with Naruto's things in a backpack. Naruto retrieved his bag from the Hokage and gave him a hug. I'll be back and then I'll take your place as Hokage, OG-san. Naruto grinned. I'll be looking forward to it, Naruto, the Hokage replied. Now run along, Grimes is waiting for you. Not really, I have a quick way to get to the Aben hold, Grimes informed. Really? Naruto asked. Yep. Now watch this, Naruto. Grimes held his hand out and purple aura surrounded it. After 10 seconds a portal opened. It was black and purple, a skull of a dragon was atop of it. Whoa, Naruto muttered. Let's go, Naruto, Grimes said, beckoning Naruto to follow him. Right. Naruto nodded. The two of them entered the portal and it vanished in a wisp of purple smoke. Why do I have the feeling that Naruto will come back a power freak? Sarutobi asked himself. He shrugged it off and pulled out a certain orange book and giggled pervertedly. The sun shone brightly in the early morning sky. Today marked the day that Naruto left the village with his adoptive brother to become a Death Knight. It was also the day he was to return and take the Genin exam. Although Naruto hadn't been taught the proper exercises of using chakra, the Hokage managed to hide some basic and advanced scrolls inside his bag before he left. The two figures just entered the village and were walking to the Hokage's tower. One had shoulder-length brown hair with a brown beard. The other had spiky blonde hair with 3 whisker marks on each cheek. As they walked through the village, many villagers and shinobi looked at the two of them questioningly. Now I can see why the villagers look confused, the blonde spoke. But the shinobi, that's just a fucking joke. Either they haven't been training these past years or they're just incredibly stupid. The brown-haired man gave a hearty chuckle and ruffled the blonde's head. True as it is, Naruto, they haven't seen you in 6 years, the brown-haired man replied. Good thing they don't know it's me just yet. If so, I'd probably be fighting them right now. Grimes, can I try to use the Shunshin? Naruto asked. Yeah, we should give that a test to see if you truly mastered it, Grimes noted. Naruto put a hand on Grimes' shoulder and focused his chakra. There was a gust of wind and the two of them vanished. Naruto and Grimes felt their feet touch the ground and opened their eyes. They stood inside the Hokage's office and saw the Hokage doing paperwork. Grimes cleared his throat to gain the Hokage's attention. The Hokage looked up and blinked before giving a grin. It's been a while, Naruto, Grimes, Sarutobi greeted. It has been a little while, Hokage-sama. Grimes replied, with a grin. The two of them took a seat in front of Sarutobi's desk and lounged back. Sarutobi lit his pipe and exhaled some smoke. So, I trust the training went well? Sarutobi asked, folding his hands under his chin. Yes, Naruto is now one of the strongest Death Knights of his group, Grimes said with pride. I think you're giving me a little too much credit, Grimes, Naruto informed. No, I'm not. Darien even said you were one of the best he'd seen in a long time, Grimes defended, crossing his arms. Now you're just spreading a load of bollocks, Darien is very rarely impressed. I don't mean to interrupt this conversation, but we should discuss the success and defects Naruto had in his training, Sarutobi interjected. Right. Sorry about that, Grimes said sheepishly. Grimes and Naruto then explained to Sarutobi about what Naruto had learned during his training. Naruto had mastered the frost abilities as well as little of the unholy and blood abilities. As for his success in his shinobi abilities, he had learned the Kage Bunshin, Kawarimi, Shunshin, a couple of fire and water jutsu. He had very high kenjutsu from his sparring with Grimes during their training. Naruto's taijutsu was average and his genjutsu level was low. If anything, Naruto was currently high chunin or low junin level at the most. Naruto, let me ask you something, Sarutobi requested. Go ahead, Naruto answered. How is it you can use the Kage Bunshin but not the regular Bunshin? The reason to why I can't is because I have extreme difficulty controlling small amounts of chakra. Naruto began. Turns out I can only use high-level techniques that require a lot of chakra and perform them without much difficulty because of the Kyuubi. So, Grimes told you that you contained the Kyuubi. Yeah, but he assured me that I wasn't a demon. Good, because you're not a demon, you're just its vessel to keep it at bay, Sarutobi said, sending a small glare at Grimes. Well, I thought he had the right to know that bit of information, Grimes said defensively. That aside, Naruto, I think you should head to the academy, the Genin test is about to start, Sarutobi informed. The Hokage pulled out a piece of paper and scribbled a quick note. He handed it to Naruto, who vanished upon retrieving it. Grimes sat there with Sarutobi in silence. So, now what? Grimes asked. Why don't we watch his performance? Sarutobi asked with a grin. With what? I have a trusty little friend here. Sarutobi pulled out a crystal ball and the image came into focus. The two of them were now looking in an exam room. Multiple kids were sitting down getting ready to take the test. Two chunin entered the room and closed the door. One had silver hair while the other had brown hair tied into a ponytail. The kids kept bickering until the brown-haired man did something unusual. His head grew twice the size of a normal one. Shut your fucking mouths, he bellowed. Grimes' sweat dropped at the scene below him. He glanced at the Hokage then back at the orb. Does that happen daily? Grimes asked, jerking his thumb at the orb. Only on Wednesdays, Sarutobi replied. Back in the exam room, the kids instantly quieted. If there was one thing that made them scared, it was that big-headed jutsu. Iruka sighed and read a piece of paper in front of him. Okay, I'm going to take attendance, Iruka announced. Before Iruka could continue, the temperature dropped significantly. Everyone shivered and chattered. Suddenly, there was a crack, and a blue flame spawned before Iruka. A figure stepped out of it and the fire vanished. The temperature warmed up again and everyone looked at the newcomer. Almost all the girls blushed as they looked at the boy. He was wearing black combat boots, dark blue cargo pants, a gray linen t-shirt, a sleeveless black vest and brown fingerless leather gloves. He had a belt with side pouches going around his waist. His hair was blonde and spiky, 3 whisker marks on each cheek and deep blue eyes. Many of the girls had various thoughts. Wow, this guy is sexy, thought Ino. He seems familiar, thought Hinata. Who does he think he is? Sakura thought callously. Ha, just another loser I can beat, thought Kiba and Sasuke. Troublesome, thought Shikamaru. New guy, thought Choji. My bugs fear him, I should stay sharp, thought Shino. Is this room 205? The boy asked. Yes it is, who are you? Iruka replied. Iruka, you didn't forget me too, did you? Let me see that note quick. The boy handed Iruka the note. As Iruka read the note, his eyes widened. Naruto. Iruka sputtered. Well, at least you remember me, Naruto said with a small smile. Good to see you again. Why don't you take a seat in one of the empty spots? Naruto nodded and walked up towards Hinata. He sat down and smiled at her. Hey, I'm Naruto, what's your name? Naruto asked politely. My name is Hinata, Hinata stuttered with a blush. That's a nice name for a pretty girl. Hinata blushed harder and pressed her index fingers together. She thanked Naruto quietly and turned to Iruka. Hey, Iruka-sensei. Why does that loser get to just enter when we've been here for years? Sakura shrieked. Wow, You don't even know me and you call me a loser. Naruto asked. Talk about shallow. What did you say, Baka? Sakura screamed. Naruto turned to face her and sent a glare at her. Sakura glared back at him and was about to speak. I strongly advise you close your mouth or I'll do it for you, Naruto hissed. Ha. Yeah right you, Baka, Sakura began but suddenly clutched at her throat. Naruto lowered his hand and turned to face Iruka. Sorry about that, her voice was getting on my nerves, Naruto. What did you do, Naruto? Iruka asked, now interested. I used a technique called strangulate. It silences the person for a short period of time. Iruka was shocked but he nodded all the same. He began to pass out the written tests one by one. After the last one was out on the desk, Iruka walked back to his desk and sat down. During the test, Naruto answered the questions at random. He set his pencil down and leaned back in his chair. He closed his eyes and relaxed his mind. So, Kit, how you doing? A voice asked. I'm doing okay, Kyuubi. You? Naruto spoke. Fine, just been bored and I wanted some company. That's understandable. So are you ready to show these wimpy genin what you're made of? You have no idea, Kyuubi. Naruto opened his eyes and noticed Iruka picking up his paper. He looked at Naruto and gave a grin, which Naruto returned. Shortly after, Iruka walked up to the group of students, and cleared his throat. Well, I will declare the scores for the test. Iruka began. Top score with 100 was Naruto, 99 with Sasuke, 98 for Sakura, 97 for Shino and Hinata, 90 for Ino, 83 for Kiba, 80 for Choji and 50 for Shikamaru. Naruto gave a brief shrug and turned his attention to Hinata. He gave the girl a grin and she blushed heavily. What? That's impossible. Iruka-sensei, there must be a mistake, no one can beat Sasuke-kun. Sakura shrieked. I don't know how to burst your bubble there, but I didn't even try, I just speculated. Naruto informed. Enough. Sakura. Naruto did the test fair and square, Iruka said with authority. Sakura just nodded and sat down in her seat again. Naruto turned around and gave her a small smirk. Now, the next portion of the test is outside. Iruka said, walking to the door. They all followed Iruka into the training fields. All of the students stood in a straight line and waited for further orders. Naruto turned his head after feeling the stares of two people. He saw both Kiba and Sasuke glaring at him. He gave them a bored look and faced the front. Okay, now I want one student at a time to head up to the line and throw your shuriken and kunai at the targets, Iruka stated. Sasuke walked up to the line first and pulled out his throwing weapons. He threw the weapons and all of them hit the dummy. The fangirls cheered and gave praise to Sasuke. The remaining students each went and hit their targets with hits and misses. Finally, it was Naruto's turn. He walked up to the line and pulled out his shuriken. Naruto took a deep breath and hurled his weapons at the dummy. He turned around and walked back towards the group, hands in his pockets. Ha! You missed, loser, Sakura said with a smirk. And I care about this because? Naruto asked, giving her a bored look. Because Sasuke-kun beat you. Sakura yelled, getting angry. I don't care if he beat me or if I beat him, I'm only good at close combat, Naruto said with a shrug. Naruto, you didn't miss the target, Iruka said with a smile. I didn't, Naruto asked, somewhat perplexed. He turned back to the target and noticed all of his shuriken were in vital and pressure spots of the dummy. Well, I'll be damned, Naruto muttered. I gotta hand it to you, Naruto. You can put up quite a facade, Kyuubi commented. Thanks, Naruto thought with a smile. Naruto was a little disappointed that the students didn't see through the mask. He would have thought Shino noticed, but the boy was just quiet. Naruto gave a satisfied grunt and walked back to Hinata. He must have cheated. Sasuke-kun had the best. Sakura began to yell, but began clutching her throat again. I can keep this up all day, but sadly we need to move on with the exam, Naruto said, lowering his hand. Well, anyway, This year we have a bunshin and a sparring test. Iruka said, sending Naruto a worried look. Anyone want to go first? Just like before, Sasuke walked forward and made a perfect bunshin of Iruka. The other students went and did theirs just like Sasuke. Now, it was Naruto's turn. He walked up beside Iruka and cracked his knuckles. Okay, Naruto, you can do it. Make a standard bunshin, Iruka said with a smile. I can't, Naruto replied, putting his hands behind his head. Ha, loser. Sakura yelled. Like I was saying, I can't because I have massive chakra reserves. I can't control little chakra, but I can use techniques that require a lot of it, Naruto continued, sending a glare at Sakura. Or any of them, clone jutsu? Iruka questioned. Yeah, it's the Kage Bunshin, Naruto answered back. What? Iruka and Mizuki yelled. Is there a problem? Naruto asked, crossing his arms. No, just shocked. Iruka responded. Go ahead and perform it. Naruto nodded and made a hand sign. There were multiple cracks and smoke filled the training grounds. The smoke cleared and everyone's jaws dropped. In front of them stood around 100 shadow clones. Too much? Naruto asked innocently. How did you learn that, Naruto? Iruka asked. I found it in a scroll. Why? No reason, just curious. Naruto felt glares coming at him and noticed Kiba and Sasuke glaring at him. This time he glared back and felt like releasing some killing intent. As he was about to do it, Iruka spoke up again. Alright, now it's time for the sparring session of the exam, Iruka announced. Everyone sat down around the dirt arena. Now, for this part of the exam, the person will get a choice on who they want to fight, Iruka noted. Naruto for his part was eager to really do some fighting. He hadn't fought anything since his Death Knight training. Although the training wasn't the real thing that Grimes had gone through, he went through a similar experience. Flashback. Naruto stood beside Grimes in the chambers. In front of them stood a Death Knight with 2 blades strapped to his back. He nodded at Grime and Naruto and motioned for them to come forth. The pair of them kneeled before the man and waited for him to speak. I take it your mission was a success, Grimes? The man inquired. Yes, High Lord Mograine, I have successfully given the alliance treaty to the Hokage, Grimes replied. Excellent work. Then again, I had the feeling you wouldn't fail. Thank you, sir, Grimes thanked. I'm your friend, Grimes. Just call me my first name. Very well, Darien. Darien pulled out one of his swords and tapped Grimes on each shoulder. Rise, Sergeant, Darien requested. Grimes stood up and saluted Darien with respect. The two of them turned their attention to the blond boy beside them. Darien quirked an eyebrow and looked at Grimes through his helmet. Who's this? Darien asked. That's my new little brother, Grimes replied. Wait, hold up a second, Darien said, putting up a hand. You have a little brother, or did you take him in as one? We might as well sit down, this is going to take a while. Grimes told Darien everything about the boy beside him. Darien felt his eyes widen during the story and he grew angry. How could a village do something like that to a kid? Grimes then went on and told him the story of the Kyuubi. Naruto's eyes widened and he became horrified at the information. Grimes calmed him by telling him he wasn't the Kyuubi, but more like its vessel. Okay Grimes, since I consider you one of my best friends, I'll help you train him. Darien voiced, standing up. Thank you, Darien. Grimes replied. But how are we going to train, Naruto? We can't have him do the same thing I did to prove myself a Death Knight. Granted that he won't be able to do them now, but it turns out, Gothic left behind a secret room upstairs. You mean that psycho that collects souls? Yes, he left a secret room upstairs that allows a person to go through a simulation of the Death Knight training. Is it the same thing I did? Yes, but he wouldn't have really done it in reality. Grimes then nodded in understanding and looked back at Naruto. Darien motioned for them to follow him to a small circle of pink light. The three of them stepped on the platform and vanished from the room below. They appeared in another room and noticed it was an old arena with weird forges. Naruto observed the room in awe, only to be brought back by Darien's voice. You'll learn about this during the training simulation, Naruto. Naruto nodded and hurried after Grimes and Darien. The three of them turned a corner and came to a small room with wooden beds set at a slant. They walked to a bed and brushed off some dust. Okay, Naruto, hop onto the bed and relax. Darien instructed. Naruto did as he was told and lied on the bed. It was extremely uncomfortable, but then again, he was familiar with it. He felt a helmet being placed on his head and opened his eyes. No sooner had he done that, he felt very drowsy. What's going on? Naruto mumbled. Naruto, listen closely. Darien began. When you enter the simulation, I want you to talk with the man holding a glowing sword with runes on it. You'll know what to do from there. Naruto felt his vision go dark and he fell into slumber. Flashback end. Naruto. Naruto. A voice called. Naruto's eyes opened and he glanced towards Iruka. It's time for your match, Naruto. Who am I going against? Naruto asked, stretching. That would be me, Dobi, voiced Sasuke. Naruto turned to Sasuke, who was smirking at him. Naruto rolled his eyes in annoyance and walked into the arena. Sasuke looked at him with a smirk, while Naruto looked bored. Alright. No using weapons or lethal jutsu, understand? Iruka inquired. The two boys grunted and Iruka hopped out of the arena. Sasuke immediately charged Naruto and threw a punch at his face. Naruto swerved out of the way and jabbed a pressure point on Sasuke's shoulder. Sasuke growled and kicked at Naruto's stomach, only for it to be caught. Naruto slammed Sasuke into the ground and delivered a punch to the stomach. Sasuke coughed out blood and gasped for breath. Naruto let go of Sasuke and began to walk away, but he heard a shout. Kaden. Gukyaku no Jutsu, cried Sasuke. Naruto turned around and saw a massive wall of flame heading towards it. Having built up enough ruinic power, Naruto waited for a moment before releasing his attack. Hungering cold, Naruto called. He held both hands out and the oncoming flames were frozen in a wall of ice. There were a few gasps from the students and shocked looks from Iruka and Mizuki. Naruto had stopped a fire attack with ice, which should have been impossible. Sasuke growled in anger at Naruto's power and ran at the barriers. Naruto shunshined in front of Sasuke and threw a punch across his face. Sasuke was sent into the air and landed on the ground from the attack. He quickly got up and began a barrage of kicks and punches. Naruto dodged and parried each attack and weaved around Sasuke. He hopped away and held out his hand. A skull with green aura appeared in his hand. Death coil. Naruto hissed. Sasuke turned around to see Naruto launch a skull with green fire around it at him. He tried to dodge, but it was too late. The attack hit him in the stomach and blasted him off his feet. Sasuke crashed through the barriers of ice Naruto created earlier, knocked out. There was silence as everyone stood agape. The new kid just crushed the Rookie of the Year in less than 3 minutes. Iruka, for his part, was proud and amazed at Naruto's improvement. Winner of the fight, Uzumaki Naruto. Iruka declared. There were shouts of anger from Sasuke's fan club. Mainly lots of screams and shrieks from Sakura. Iruka-sensei. Naruto baka, cheated. Sakura shrieked. He attacked me with a lethal attack. I had the right of way for self-defense, Naruto stated, matter-of-factly. You are such an asshole. Sakura yelled. And you're a fugly bitch. Anything else I'm missing? Naruto asked. Sakura's eyes widened and she felt tears of rage build up in her eyes. She didn't like being called ugly, but being called fugly really shut her up. She wasn't that horrid, was she? The only thing that made her ugly was her forehead. Oh, how little did she know. Okay, that's enough. Everyone has passed the exam, come and get your Hitai 8. Iruka interjected. Everyone walked over and picked up a Hitai 8. Naruto saw Iruka holding his headband out for him. Naruto took it with a smile and tied it around his head. Congratulations, everyone. Come back here in 2 days for team formations. Iruka called over the cheering students. Naruto exited the building to see parents greeting their kids. He hung his head slightly at the thought of not having parents waiting for him. He heard praises coming from other parents. "I'm so proud of you, son," cheered a man. "My little girl Akunoichi," boasted a woman. "I'll have mom cook your favorite dinner as a celebration." "Good for you, son." Naruto's shoulders slumped as each praise was said. He was about to walk away until he felt a hand on his shoulder. Naruto looked up to see Grimes, beaming at him. Naruto grinned and his brother ruffled his hair. "Nice job, Naruto." Grimes began. "You didn't take shit from that, Uchiha. Let's go get some ramen to celebrate." "Yeah." Naruto nodded. The two of them walked away from the academy, unaware of the angry glares coming from Sasuke. Naruto and Grimes walked down the street from the academy, both of them ignoring the looks that were sent towards them. The distant aroma of ramen filled their nostrils as they neared the restaurant. They entered the stand and sat down in front of the counter. "I'll be with you in a moment," called a man. "I got it, Dad," came a girl's voice. A brunette came out of the kitchen and up to them. She pulled out a pen and paper before looking up. She looked at the two customers. The blonde looked familiar and the other was a brown-haired man. "What can I get for you two?" she asked. "Ayame, don't tell me you forgot me as well." Naruto replied, looking hurt. "Well, you look familiar, but I can't place my finger on it. I always came here to eat every day for breakfast, lunch and dinner." There was one person who, wait, Naruto. The one and only. Ayame wrapped him in a bone-crushing hug, knocking the wind out of him. He felt his face heat up as it was buried in her chest. He hugged back somewhat struggling, which Ayame noticed. She blushed and released Naruto from her hold. He panted slightly but regained composure. "Dad, look who's here." Ayame hollered. Tsuki hurried out to his daughter, giving her a questioning look. He glanced at her, then at the customers. One had brown hair with a beard, the other was blonde. His eyes widened as he only knew there was one blonde-haired boy in this village. "Naruto." Tsuki sputtered. "Long time no see, old man?" Naruto asked with a smile. Grimes and Naruto departed the stand an hour later, waving to Tsuki and Ayame. The pair of them began to walk home, but were stopped by two Anbu. Grimes immediately went on guard, his hand hanging by his side. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the Anbu and noticed Grimes getting ready for a skirmish. "The Hokage has asked for your presence at the council chambers in 10 minutes, the first spoke. "Be there soon, the council wants to ask you some questions, and they tend to be very impatient," the second Anbu finished. They nodded and the Anbu vanished upon delivering their message. Naruto began to walk towards the Hokage's tower, Grimes following behind him. They began to jog towards the tower, not wanting to be late. Naruto began to pull further ahead of Grimes and vanished around another corner. Grimes cursed his little brother for being very quick and began to speed up. He rounded the corner, only to collide into someone. He fell to the ground with a crash and sat up swiftly. Grimes noticed he knocked over a woman and she pushed herself up. Being the gentleman he was, he walked over to the woman and held a hand out to her. "Are you okay? I didn't see you there." Grimes spoke. The woman looked up at him and Grimes' eyes widened considerably. In front of him was probably one of the most beautiful women he had ever seen. She had long raven black hair, intoxicating red eyes, luscious lips, beautiful curves and a soft face. She was wearing black shinobi sandals, a white bandaged dress and hitai around her head. The woman grabbed his hand and he pulled her up. She brushed herself off and gave him a glare. Grimes was now taken aback. The glare he received made him very cautious. Even though she was a woman, Grimes could tell she could probably kick his into next Sunday. "I'm fine, now watch where you're going," she snapped. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bump into you. I was just trying to catch up to my little brother," Grimes replied, letting go of her hand and backing up. "Well, go then, and if you bump into me again you'll be in a lot of pain." Grimes gave a nod and ran as fast as he could from the woman. He continued his run and eventually came to the tower. He panted heavily and looked around for Naruto. He saw him standing in front of the doors to the tower, arms crossed. Grimes walked over to Naruto and gave a small nod. What took you so long? Naruto asked as they entered the tower. I accidentally bumped into a woman and knocked her over, Grimes said with a sheepish look. Did she have red eyes and raven hair? Yeah, how did you know that? I almost bumped into her but avoided her at the last second. They came up to the desk and the woman came into view. She sent a small glare at Naruto before looking at Grimes. What are you doing here? She asked rudely. We're here to see the council and the Hokage. Grimes answered. Well, they're in the room behind me, now go. She seemed very friendly. Naruto muttered sarcastically. Naruto and Grimes entered the room behind the attorney and closed the doors behind them. They walked to the center of the room and noticed the Hokage sitting in a seat between two sections of seats. One side was the civilian council and the other was the shinobi council. Ah, Naruto, Grimes, you made it, the Hokage said with a smile. Well, of course we did, we didn't want to be late, Grimes began. Now, what exactly have you called us for? Well, the civilian and shinobi councils would like to have a word with you, Hiruzen noted. Grimes and Naruto looked to the right and saw many civilians glaring at them. Well, mainly they were glaring at Naruto. They just looked at Grimes with some confused looks. Grimes, not liking the looks they were giving to Naruto, sent some of his killing intent at them. Their glares ceased from existence and were replaced with terrified expressions. Well, we're here, what did you need from us? Grimes asked bitterly. You will address us with respect, shrieked a pink-haired woman. You look familiar, aren't you the one that Hiruzen locked up for attacking Naruto 6 years ago? Grimes inquired. Yes, but I was released, she replied with a smirk. Wow, that was a big mistake, Naruto said, glaring at the woman. Shut up, demon. Do not call my little brother a demon, you fucking banshee. Grimes sneered, his hand getting ready to pull out his sword. Enough, Hiruzen voiced. Haruno-san, do not call Naruto that, or I will send you back to prison, understood? She muttered a blunt apology before looking back at Naruto and Grimes. Hiruzen lit his pipe and looked at the elders sitting beside him. Uzumaki Naruto, you are charged with assault on one Uchiha Sasuke. Your punishment is to hand over all your belongings to him and you are relieved of your shinobi duties, spoke Danzo. Quit while you're ahead, Danzo, Grimes warned. The Hokage and I saw the whole fight against Naruto and Sasuke. It was a spar in which the Uchiha brat used a lethal attack. He is an Uchiha. He can do whatever he pleases, shrieked the Haruno. Scream one more time and I'll make sure your voice is going to be lodged in your throat, Grimes said, walking towards her. Stand down, Grimes, barked Homura. I'm trying to do everyone a favor by shutting her up, Grimes retorted. The Shinobi Council let out sniggers and chuckles from Grimes' statement. The Haruno opened her mouth to shriek but Grimes' hand shot out towards her. Her voice immediately became muted and she began to clutch at her throat. Many of them let out sighs of relief. Back to the matter at hand, Grimes is correct, Naruto only acted in self-defense. Hiruzen announced. Hokage-sama, he must hand over everything he owns to the Uchiha. A civilian shouted. What do I have to give him? Naruto asked, glaring at the man. I don't own anything thanks to you stupid shits. Hold your tongue, barked another civilian. You idiots have no power over me, only the Shinobi Council can order me around. We are your superior, demon, yelled a civilian. The next one of you who calls Naruto a demon will have to walk with my blade between their eyes. Grimes yelled. That would be treason and you would be executed, shouted Danzo. I'd love to see you try to execute me, you old fart, Grimes said with a smirk. Enough, roared the Hokage. Fine, if we can't give your belongings to the Uchiha, then he will be under the protection of Grimes, a civilian stated. Grimes laughed loudly and glared at the man. He held his arm up and a purple arm shot out of it. It snaked around the man's neck and yanked him over to Grimes. I will not protect some spoiled brat who is having his kissed by a bunch of fools. Grimes hissed. Us members of the Civilian Council command you to teach the Uchiha everything you know. The Haruno yelled. Wrong again, I do not belong to this village. I am here as an emissary for the Aben Blade. I will not teach a boy who is mentally unstable anything in the arts of necromancy. Excuse me for the interruption, but is the Aben Blade hidden in a village? Asked Hiyashi. No, we are isolated from society for our own reasons. Grimes replied. How exactly are you isolated? Shikaku asked. Surely you'd have a compound hidden somewhere. We do, but since there is so little Death Knights left, we have a keep hidden in the skies. What exactly happened to the Death Knights? Asked Hiruzen. Grimes looked away for a moment and sighed. He threw the civilian back into his seat before turning back to the Hokage. Not to be a bit of an asshole here, Hokage-sama, but the only reason the Aben Blade joined your alliance is because a lot of Death Knights were killed in the war against our former master, the Lich King. The Lich King? Asked Inoichi. The Lich King was our former master. He was once known as Prince Arthas of Lordern, but he sunk into darkness. He killed his mentor, Uther the Lightbringer, and his own father. He had the ability to twist the souls and minds of human beings. He formed a massive army of undead creatures known as the Scourge. We broke free of his grip after a battle against the Argent Dawn in the Eastern Plaguelands. High Lord Tyrion Fordring came and stopped us in our tracks. When that happened, he told us that we were merely pawns to the bastard. He told our current leader, High Lord Darian Mograine, that he had become everything his father, Alexandros Mograine, also known as the Scarlet High Lord or the Ashbringer, fought against. What happened then? Asked Hiruzen. Well, at the time, Darian was wielding the legendary blade, the Ashbringer, which belonged to his father. But it was corrupted by his brother, Renaud Mograine, who killed their father in hopes of becoming the next commander of the Scarlet Crusade. When their father was killed by his own blade, his soul was trapped inside, turning him into a Death Knight. And when Darian sought Tyrion out years previously, he was told that his father could only be freed if an act of pure love occurred. And Darian, being in a fight against the Scourge when he joined the Argent Dawn, plunged the Ashbringer into himself, freeing his father's soul but dooming his own to hell. Both sides of the council exchanged looks with each other as Grimes informed them of the background of the Aben Blade. It was then that Arthas came and confirmed that he used his soldiers, which were the Death Knights, to lure Tyrion out of hiding. Darian attempted to kill him, but Arthas tossed him aside like he was nothing. He tried to kill Tyrion by paralyzing him in a curse, but he broke free when Darian tossed the Ashbringer to him. The Ashbringer became purified and Tyrion managed to harm Arthas, forcing the coward to retreat to his domain in Icecrown. Grimes finished. By this time, everyone in the room was interested in the story. Danzo licked his lips at the thought of the Ashbringer and the armies of undead. The shinobi and the Hokage were thunderstruck at the background Grimes came from. And that brought us up to the point where we joined you, Hokage-sama. Grimes continued. We're still at war with the Lich King. We've retreated for now since we lost so many good men and women against this monster. We started training new recruits to be Death Knights, and we came to join the Alliance to ask for your help when the time comes. Absolutely not. We will not come and aid you fools against this thing, shouted Homura. Homura, they're our allies, we will give them aid whether you like it or not. Hiruzen stated. But, Hiruzen, surely you can't be serious. I'm serious, that's what alliances do, they help each other in their time of need. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Grimes said, bowing. The Aben Blade will be here to help when needed. Likewise, but for now, we should continue this meeting another day. This meeting is adjourned, Hiruzen replied. Grimes and Naruto left the Hokage Tower, both a little tired from the long assembly. They decided to get some dinner before heading home. The two of them entered a random restaurant and sat down. When they took a seat, the eatery's doors blasted open and two women stepped inside. One had a tan trenchcoat, a black miniskirt, black sandals and a fishnet shirt minus the bra. The other was the one Grimes had bumped into hours previously. Dango time, shouted the purple-haired Kunoichi. Anko, do you really need to be that energetic? Asked her companion. If it's Dango, then yes. Anko, if you stop being energetic, I'll pay tonight. You're no fun, Kurenai. The two women looked around and tried to find a place to sit, only to find a whole bunch of male shinobi grinning at them and giving them whistles. Now, both of them being proud women, hated perverts with a passion, and right now almost every man in the diner was a pervert. Two of the men, however, just looked at them and went back to their conversation. Why don't we go sit over there? Anko asked, pointing to the two men. They don't look like perverts. Kurenai looked to where Anko was pointing and noticed it was the blonde-haired boy that almost bumped her and the older man that accidentally knocked her over. She gave a moment of thought then shrugged. Okay, why not? Kurenai replied. Naruto and Grimes shared a laugh before Naruto continued talking. Remember that time Mac and Gaz put the dead ghoul under Darian's bed? Naruto asked, laughing hard. That was priceless. Darian chased them around the keep the entire day, Grimes added, laughing just as hard. Excuse me. A woman spoke. Grimes and Naruto stopped laughing and turned to the voice. They saw the two women that entered the restaurant standing by their table. Grimes looked at Naruto, who shrugged. Yes, can we help you with something? Grimes inquired. Do you mind if we join you too? The red-eyed woman asked. Not at all. Grimes scooted down in the booth and the two women climbed into the booth. Once that was out of the way, they sat in silence for a moment. I'm Grimes, and this is my adoptive little brother, Naruto, Grimes introduced, holding his hand out. Nice to meet you. I'm the sexy single lady, Mitarashi Anko, the purple-haired woman greeted with a grin. Grimes smirked back and shook her hand. I'm the Genjutsu mistress of Konoha, Yuhi Kurenai, the red-eyed woman said with a smile. Naruto and Grimes both shook her hand. So are you new in town, cutie? Anko asked, looking at Grimes. Grimes, a little shocked she classified him as a cutie, gave a small nod. Yeah, I've only been here once, and that was 6 years ago saving my little brother here. Grimes answered. Kurenai felt a genjutsu present and looked at Grimes. She narrowed her eyes in suspicion and began making hand signs under the table. Nothing seemed unusual, but his eyes, which were green, had a chakra presence accompanying it. Is that your natural eye color, Grimes? Kurenai asked, finishing her last hand seal. Yeah, why do you ask? Grimes responded a little nervously. Because I sense chakra around them. Grimes' eyes widened in shock and he gulped. Naruto, let's go. Grimes muttered. Why? Naruto asked. I don't want to make a scene, now come on, he continued, desperate to leave. Kai, Kurenai hissed. Shit. Grimes swore loudly. He covered his eyes with his hand. Grimes used his free arm to clutch Naruto's shoulder. Naruto, get me out of here, I don't want people to see my eyes. Grimes pleaded. Anko, now curious, decided to see what had the new cute guy scared. She quickly summoned a snake and had it curl around Grimes' free arm. Anko pulled back on the snake, causing Grimes' arm to fall away, revealing his eyes. Both of the females gasped at the sight, while Grimes hung his head dejectedly. You're a vindictive, persistent piece of work, aren't ya? Grimes asked bitterly. He lifted his head to reveal two neon blue eyes, no pupil or iris to be seen. A lot of the shinobi in the bar looked at Grimes with wide eyes. Many pointed at him and gave some glares. Much to Grimes' dismay, it reminded him of the first time he set foot back in civilization after being turned into a death knight. Look at the freak, yelled a random shinobi pointing at Grimes. Grimes visibly flinched at the insult and slumped down a little in his seat. He'd rather be fighting a horde of abominations than be insulted for something out of his control. Grimes kept muttering angry curses while clenching his fists. A couple shinobi walked over to the booth and grabbed Grimes by the shoulder. Let's have some fun with this freak, shouted another shinobi. The group of shinobi pulled Grimes out of the booth and outside the diner. Naruto looked at his brother in horror before turning to glare at Kurenai. He stalked out of the restaurant to help his brother. Kurenai sat there shocked at what happened. She felt the guilt hit her in the stomach in full force. She had unwittingly caused this man, who did nothing wrong, a lot of pain. I don't think that was a good idea, Kurenai, Anko voiced, feeling sorry for Grimes. I didn't. Kurenai stammered. We should go give him a hand. Hi. The two of them exited the diner and stopped to see the small skirmish about to take place. 10 shinobi surrounded Grimes, who stood in the middle of the road. Many of them holding shuriken and kunai at the ready. Look, I don't want any trouble, let's just forget about this, Grimes said, trying to negotiate. You got trouble for being a freak, you freak. Shouted another Junin. I'm not going to ask nicely again. Stop the fight now or you will die, Grimes warned. Please. There's 10 of us against you. Don't take me lightly. A Junin, wanting to start the show, threw the kunai at breakneck speed towards Grimes. There was a clang as it hit him in the chest before falling to the ground. The Junin looked in shock, which turned to anger. Grimes began to chuckle, which turned into an insane laugh. He held out his hands, which glowed dark purple. There were 2 loud cracks as 2 blades appeared in his hands. Both of them had a skull hilt, a silver blade with a sliver of blue in the center, neon runes on each, a blue diamond pommel and spikes on each side of the blade. Grimes, wait, Naruto called, running towards him. Naruto, just stay back, if they want me they can come and get me, Grimes said with a sadistic grin. His blade began to glow white, while the other glowed a reddish orange. Get him, boys, shouted the leader of the group. 1 Junin charged at Grimes, trench knives at the ready. Grimes parried the attack and slashed at the man. The Junin cried in agony as the blade latched onto his back and ripped his back open. He fell to the ground unconscious. Any of you idiots want to stop, or do you want to suffer like your friend here? Grimes offered. We're just getting started, countered another Junin. 2 more ran at Grimes from opposite sides. Grimes waited, then he parried the attacker on his right before swerving around him and using him as a meat shield. The sound of tearing cloth and flesh sounded and the Junin fell to the ground whimpering. You bastard, shouted the Junin, charging at Grimes. Grimes smirked and held out his palm. A wave of ice shot out of his palm, encasing the Junin inside the block of ice. Grimes walked over and stabbed through the ice, piercing the Junin through the stomach, exiting his back. The ice shattered and the Junin fell to the ground, bleeding profusely. Still wanna try me? Grimes taunted. You son of a bye, began the Junin, but stopped when a green skull of fire nailed him in the stomach. It launched him off his feet and he crashed through a window. Meanwhile, Naruto walked over to Anko and Kurenai. He turned back to the fight and shook his head. Grimes wasn't even going at full power. Over the years Naruto trained with him, Grimes learned a lot of jutsu. If anything, he was around high Junin level or even Anbu. Anko and Kurenai looked with wide eyes at the fight. This new guy was kicking each of the Junin around like a rag doll. Why did you do that, Kurenai-san? Naruto hissed. I didn't know, I thought he was hiding something and may have been a threat. Kurenai defended. Had you asked him properly, he probably won't be in this situation. Kurenai hung her head. Naruto was right. Instead of jumping to direct conclusions, she should have asked him first. Anko, however, was drooling at the sight of the new, hot, guy demolishing all the Junin. That is so cool. Anko grinned, licking her lips. There was a crack as the Sandame and 2 Anbu appeared out of the blue. What the bloody hell is going on here? Roared Hiruzen. Hokage-sama. This bastard here attacked us when we were minding our own business, a Junin replied. No he didn't, Gramps, these guys pulled him out of the bar after seeing his eyes and attacked him, Naruto began. Grimes tried to negotiate with them but they attacked him anyway. Is this true, Grimes? Hiruzen asked. Grimes, swords vanished and he gave a nod. He walked over to the Hokage before looking up at him. Yeah, it's true. Grimes replied. I second his answer, Hokage-sama, Kurenai interjected. It was my fault this happened. Very well, Kurenai, I'll talk with you about this later. Right now we have a problem. Hiruzen replied. What happened, Hokage-sama? Asked Anko. It's Mizuki. Hiruzen muttered. He's stolen the forbidden scroll and ran off into the woods. We need to find him and bring him back for interrogation. If he uses force, kill him. Do we have a position on him? Grimes asked. Yes, he was spotted heading towards the forest. Okay, leave this to me and Naruto, we can take this guy. He's miles away, how are you going to catch up to him? With these, Grimes and Naruto raised their hands in the air and purple aura began to form in their hands. There was another loud crack as the aura disappeared and there sat two black horses. They were armored with black armor, skulls on the saddles, curved horns, ice blue legs, and neon blue eyes. What the hell? Voiced a Junin. What are those? Asked Hiruzen. Acheris Death Chargers, very fast horses. Grimes responded. Good luck, we'll be out there for you guys by morning. Grimes and Naruto nodded and they galloped out of sight. The two of them felt the wind brushing their faces as they raced through the wood. They came to a stop about half an hour later and their horses vanished in a poof of smoke. You hear that? Grimes asked, pulling out his blade. Yeah, it sounds like cackling. Naruto replied. Sure enough, the two of them heard crazy cackles a few feet away. They peered around the trees and saw the silver-haired Chunin sitting by a tree reading the scroll. Naruto summoned his sword, getting ready for the fight. This is perfect. Now I can finally have the power I need. Mizuki hooted. Okay, the target is directly in front of the tree. Grimes whispered. We need to take him alive, Naruto, so let's try to avoid killing him. Naruto nodded and looked at Mizuki again. Wait for me to get into position. Grimes hurried around the tree and hid in the bushes at Mizuki's left. Wait for my mark, Naruto, Grimes muttered. Naruto gripped his blade tightly and waited for Grimes to give the order. Stand by, smoke him. Kaden, Karyudan, Grimes hollered. Mizuki turned to the sound of the voice, only to see balls of fire soar towards him. He dodged just in time, only to get slammed by someone from the right. He looked out the corner of his eye to see the Kyuubi brat in front of him. Mizuki growled crossly, and reached for the giant shuriken on his back. Well, if it isn't Naruto. Mizuki sneered, glaring at Naruto. Mizuki, come clean, you're outnumbered, Naruto said, crossing his arms. Oh yeah, who can help you take down an elite like me? Mizuki mocked. He suddenly felt someone tap his shoulder. He turned around to face a man with shoulder-length brown hair and a beard with neon blue eyes smirking at him. Mizuki's eyes grew wide with surprise at the appearance of the man. That would be me, Grimes hissed, punching Mizuki in the stomach. Mizuki was blasted off his feet and sent crashing into a nearby tree. He spat up blood and glared at the two men in front of him. He glanced at Naruto, and smirked with a sudden thought. Well, you caught me, but before you take me back, Mizuki began. Naruto, have you ever wondered why the villagers hate you? Naruto inwardly smirked at what Mizuki was going to do, so he decided to lure him into a false sense of security. Grimes had seen where this was going to and decided to play it out. No, don't tell him, Grimes pleaded, pulling out his sword and running to Mizuki. What are you saying? Naruto asked, stepping back a step. They hate you because you're the Kyuubi. The nine-tailed fox. Mizuki bellowed. There was silence and Mizuki smirked triumphantly. Naruto looked down to hide the shit-eating grin on his face and began to shake. Grimes looked at Naruto with a smirk, then back to Mizuki with a look of rage. Mizuki was about to attack Grimes, but stopped when he heard clapping. He looked up and saw Naruto clapping, beginning to laugh as he walked forward. Very good, Mizuki, Naruto said sarcastically. Wait, you knew? Mizuki asked, somewhat perplexed. Are you daft? Of course I knew it. You can thank my brother here. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm not going back to Konoha. I'll kill you for getting in my way. Very well. But tell me something, Mizuki, Grimes said looking down at the ground. What? Have you ever fought a necromancer? No, but it doesn't matter. Now die. Mizuki threw his shuriken at Naruto, who parried it with his blade. Mizuki growled in anger at his attack being blocked so easily. He charged at Naruto, completely forgetting Grimes was standing there. Naruto leapt back and went through various hand signs. Suiden. Suiryuden no Jutsu. Naruto yelled. A water dragon shot out of a nearby puddle and hit Mizuki dead in the stomach. Mizuki cried in pain and was slammed into the tree headfirst. He hit the ground in a heap, out cold. Grimes quickly shot his palm out and froze Mizuki from the neck down in ice. Naruto walked over and picked up the scroll that lay by Mizuki's side. Grimes walked over to Naruto and clapped him on the shoulder. Nice job, Naruto, Grimes said with a grin. Naruto grinned back and slung the scroll over his shoulder. There was a thump and the Hokage appeared with 2 Anbu by his side. He looked at Mizuki, who was completely frozen in ice, then to Naruto and Grimes. He gave a grin and walked over to them. Excellent job you two, Hiruzen praised. Thanks, Gramps, Naruto said with a nod. Alright, Anbu, take care of the traitor. Naruto, I'll take the scroll now. Hi, Hokage-sama, the Anbu voiced. They walked over to Mizuki, picked him up and shunshined away. Naruto tossed the scroll to the Hokage before yawning. The Hokage chuckled at his grandson figure. Why don't you two go get some shut-eye? It's almost morning, Hiruzen offered. I won't argue with you there, I'm exhausted. Grimes yawned. The Hokage shunshined away, leaving Naruto and Grimes alone. They looked at each other and nodded. The two of them walked down the path toward the village. It had been a long first day back home. Naruto stepped into the living room, stretching from a good night's rest. He walked over to the kitchen and opened the fridge. He pulled out some milk and some cereal, setting it on the table before sitting down. A small creak met his ears as a door opened, revealing Grimes yawning. He sat down across from Naruto, holding a cup of coffee. Naruto looked at his older brother to see his slouching state. Bad night? Naruto asked, already knowing the answer. When do I never have a bad night? Grimes replied, sipping his coffee. Sorry, standard question. There was a tap coming from the window. Naruto looked up and noticed a messenger bird with a letter attached to its leg. He moved a pace to the window, opening it to retrieve the letter. Naruto yanked the letter off the bird, sending it away. He opened the letter and read it before walking back to the table. What's it say? Grimes asked. The old man wants to talk to us later today, Naruto informed. How soon? Probably when we finish breakfast here. The two of them finished their meal, cleaning themselves up quickly before leaving their house. A few minutes later, the pair of them stood in the Hokage's office. The Sandaime turned around and gave a grin. He motioned for them to take a seat, which they did. Did you both have a good sleep? The Hokage asked, puffing out smoke. More or less, Grimes muttered. I suppose you're wondering why I summoned you here. Yeah, we were wondering if it was something about Mizuki, Naruto replied. No, nothing is of concern regarding to Mizuki, the Hokage noted. Early this morning I received a note from High Lord Mograine. About what? Grimes asked, sitting up abruptly. Well, you are both aware that the team selections are today at the academy, right? They both nodded, clarifying that they did. Well, Darien wrote to notify me that he was sending to Death Knights to join the shinobi teams. What are their names? Naruto inquired. He says they were good friends of yours, Mac and Gaz. So the two rabble-rousers are coming to join the teams, Grimes said with a smirk. Suffice to say, yes they are, the Hokage replied. When are they supposed to be here? Momentarily. Sure enough, a purple portal materialized in front of them. Two figures stepped out of the portal before it vanished in a wisp of smoke. Both of them looked around 13 years old. One was about Naruto's height, he had auburn hair, brown eyes, pale. He was wearing a blue linen t-shirt, black cargo pants, brown fingerless gloves, a brown belt wrapping around his hips and slinging up over his shoulder, and a green sleeveless vest. To top it off, he carried the same sword Grimes did, except it was red. The second boy was about half a foot taller than Naruto and the other. He had green eyes, pale, and brown hair. He wore black cargo pants, red linen t-shirt, black sleeveless vest, gray-plated fingerless gloves, combat boots, and a green skull cap think Genma's bandana. It's been a while, Naruto, spoke the boy with the hat. It's only been a week, Gaz, Naruto replied. Oh yeah. Baka, do you constantly have your head up your? Asked the other. Mac, shut up, Gaz hissed. You three better head down to the academy, teams are going to be announced within the hour, the Hokage voiced. Okay. See you later, Naruto spoke, shining away with Mac and Gaz. Grimes, I think it's time for you to meet your fellow Junin senseis, the Hokage said, puffing out some smoke. Okay. Where are they? Grimes answered. They'll be here in a few minutes, so sit and wait. At the academy, the rookies sat waiting for Iruka and Mizuki to enter the class. Naruto, Mac and Gaz appeared outside the door. He glanced at them before getting a confirming nod. Naruto opened the door and entered the room, his companions trailing behind him. As they entered the class, some of the rookies stared at them briefly before turning away. The three of them walked to a desk behind the Uchiha and sat down. They sat in silence until Naruto broke it. So what news is there about the Rakan back in Icecrown? He asked. Not much. All we know is that Tyrion and Darien's forces are still stuck at Crusader's Point, Mac whispered back. Not much progress has been made because they aren't sure how much land is behind each gate beyond the rally point, Gaz added. Not to mention there is probably a substantial amount of scourge at each gate. The door to the class opened up again and two kunoichi burst inside. Both of them yelling, first. The two girls began to argue before turning to the seats to find someone. Eventually they ran right to the Uchiha and sat on either side of him. The three of them chuckled at the Uchiha's posture when the girls sat by him. Neither of them could imagine that brooding could go further than the Uchiha just showed. Hey Naruto, who are the three in front of us? Gaz asked. They're both fangirls, the blonde one is Ino, the pink-haired eyesore is Sakura, and the raven-haired guy is the emo, Sasuke, Naruto replied. The door opened a third time, and Iruka entered the classroom holding some paper. He glanced at the class, noticing that there were two new faces. Iruka then remembered what the Hokage said about two more rookies entering. He shrugged before clearing his throat. Good morning all, Iruka greeted. The class gave grunts in reply, causing Iruka to sweat drop at the scene. Good lord, these kids need some social skills, Iruka thought. Now, as all of you know, you are now shinobi and are going to be serving the village until you either retire or if you're unlucky, die. Iruka said, causing some kids to gulp. But in order to become better shinobi, you must become familiar with teamwork and training, that is why there will be teams of shinobi under a Junin sensei to help you with your future, Iruka continued. Now, I'll begin announcing the teams. Team 1 consists of Naruto. Gaz and Mac tuned Iruka out and began to doze off. It remained like that until they heard another team being announced. Team 7 is Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto raised his head. Haruno Sakura. Sakura groaned. Naruto was itching for someone to just kill him now. Uchiha Sasuke. Sakura cheered and Naruto began to twitch in anger, muttering, over and over. Gaz Zanovich, and Mac Compton. Iruka Sensei, why is Billboard brow paired with Sasuke-kun? And why is Team 7 filled with 2 extra people? Ino yelled. Others began to voice their opinions but were silenced with Iruka doing the big-headed jutsu. That's just the way the Hokage listed it, now shut the fuck up. Iruka bellowed. The kids instantly quieted and shrunk back into their seats. That was awesome, Gaz muttered with a smirk. Wow, I actually like this mentor, Mac added. Team 8 is Inuzuka Kiba, Hyuga Hinata, and Aburame Shino, Iruka continued. Team 9 is in circulation from last year. Team 10 is Akamaiki Choji, Yamanaka Ino, and Nara Shikamaru. Ino began to mutter curses under her breath while thumping her head against the desk repeatedly. As for senseis, Team 7's senseis are Hitaki Kakashi and Grimes Walcroft. Team 8's sensei is Yuhi Kurenai, and Team 10's sensei is Sarutobi Asuma. Iruka finished. You are to wait here for your senseis to come and retrieve you. Good luck. Iruka left the room, causing students to converse again. A couple minutes passed before the door opened, revealing a man with a black beard smoking a cigarette. Team 10, let's move out, he spoke. Ino, Shikamaru and Choji got up and followed the man. Next came a woman with red eyes. Team 8, follow me please, she said before leaving. Slowly but surely, all the other teams left, leaving Team 7 remaining. Naruto, Gaz and Mac were chuckling while looking at some sketches Gaz had drawn earlier. One sketch was a fish with its rear fins stuck inside styrofoam floating upward. The caption under it read, "Embedded in styrofoam, shoes, Carl is sent to sleep with the humans." Another one had 3 men in it, 2 of them wearing hats, the taller one holding a bat, were looking at a man with glasses reading, "Still no money, EH. Well, let's see if Rudy and his wiffle bat can help encourage you," and under that panel it read, "Ineffective tools of persuasion." The last one reduced them to tears from laughing so hard. It had a jungle village with the tribe sitting outside looking at an explorer with a humongous head. The caption read, "Unwittingly, Palmer had stepped out of the jungle and into headhunter folklore forever. AN. Now these cartoons are from the cartoonist Gary Larson, creator of The Far Side, whole bunch of funny cartoons. These are not mine, I just wanted to put them in because they're funny, so I do not own these." The door opened and 2 men stepped inside. One was Grimes, the other had gravity-defying gray hair, his Hittite slanted over his left eye, wearing a standard Junin uniform. The 5 turned to the 2 men, just noticing them. They were glaring at them because of waiting for 2 hours. "Sorry we're late, I was trying to find this guy," Grimes said, indicating to his comrade. "My first impression is, I hate you 5, meet us on the roof," the Cyclops spoke, shining away with Grimes. "Come on you losers," Sasuke began, only to see the 3 vanish via a shunshin. He clenched his fists, seething at the sight of seeing his teammates do something he couldn't. How can those 3 losers do that? I'm an Uchiha, he thought with malice. Sasuke and Sakura worked their way to the roof. Sasuke was becoming irate from Sakura's constant attempts to ask him out. Once they reached the roof, he silently thanked Kami he wasn't alone with Sakura. Sasuke sat down between Mac and Gaz, folding his hands under his chin. Sakura sat by Gaz, stealing glances at Sasuke every now and then. "Well, now that we're all here, why don't we introduce ourselves?" the Cyclops said. Why don't you go first, Sensei, and show us what you mean?" Sakura replied, unsure of how to do it. "Okay. My name is Hitaki Kakashi, I don't have any likes and dislikes, my hobbies are none of your concern, and my dreams I don't feel like telling you," Kakashi finished. All we learned was his name, thought the 5 students. "My name is Grimes Walcroft, my likes are training and my little brother, my dislikes are the nightmares I have every night, my hobbies are training my little brother, and my dream is to hopefully retire with a wife and 2 kids, Grimes said, looking at the 5. "You next, Pinky," Kakashi said, pointing to Sakura. Sakura growled at being called Pinky, but shrugged it off. "My name is Haruno Sakura. My likes are," she looks at Sasuke and giggles, "my dislikes are people who are creepy, annoying, and Ino pig." She said, looking at Gaz, Mac and Naruto, "My hobbies are," she giggles, looking at Sasuke again, "and my dream is," she looked at Sasuke for what seemed to be the 100th time that day and squealed loudly. A fangirl, Kami must hate me, Kakashi thought. "Alright, you're next, Blondie," Kakashi said, looking at Naruto. "My name is Uzumaki Naruto. My likes are ramen, my friends, training, music, and a certain girl. My dislikes are arrogant pricks, fangirls, perverts, and people who hurt my precious people. My hobbies are training, my older brother, my friends here, and playing my guitar. My dream is to surpass the fourth Hokage in skill and become Hokage, Naruto stated. Seems like he's the only normal one so far, Kakashi thought. Alright, you dark and broody, Kakashi said, looking at Sasuke. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I have no likes and dislikes, I have no hobbies, and my dream. No, ambition, is to kill a certain man and revive my clan, Sasuke replied. Sakura looked at him as though he just said the coolest thing in the universe. An Avenger, I'll have to knock that out of him, Kakashi thought. Okay, your turn, Grimes said, looking at Gaz. My name is Gaz Zanovich. My likes are training, my friends, and music. My dislikes are fangirls and arrogant people. My hobbies are training, drawing, and playing the bass guitar. My dream is to be a great soldier like my dad, Gaz finished. Okay Mac, your turn, Gaz said turning to Mac. My name is Mac Compton. My likes are training, music, and my friends. My dislikes are arrogant people and fangirls. My hobbies are training, sparring, and playing drums. My dream is to have a wife and raise a family, Mac said grinning widely. Well, me and Kakashi here will do our best to help you achieve your goals, Grimes said standing up. Okay, meet at Training Ground 7 tomorrow morning at 5 for your test, Kakashi voiced. But sensei, we did the graduation test already, Sakura said, looking a little confused. True, but that wasn't the real test, this test is to see if you are capable of being shinobi. Kakashi said, with his trademark eye smile. It has a 66% failure rate, if you fail you go back to the academy. Now get some sleep, and don't eat breakfast tomorrow if you plan on throwing up. Kakashi turned and shunshined away. Well, why don't we go home? Grimes asked looking at the 3 Death Knights. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, I'm hungry and tired, Gaz commented. Alright we'll walk home, it's a nice day today so let's enjoy it, Mac added. The 4 Death Knights hopped off the roof and began walking down the road. Sasuke and Sakura were alone. Sasuke mentally began counting down the seconds till Sakura would ask the question. Sasuke-kun, do you wanna go on a date with me? Sakura asked with a smile. No, you're annoying, Sasuke replied. He hopped off the roof and began to make his way back home. Sakura hung her head dejectedly, but smiled and shook it off. I'm sure he's just tired, that's all, Sakura told herself. Shanaru, he'll definitely will take our offer tomorrow, and then he'll be all ours. Inner Sakura cheered. Sakura got up and began to make her way home. The 4 Death Knights went to sleep shortly after eating dinner. Unknown to them, 3 of them would be reliving nightmares of their worst memories. Each of them went to their rooms, climbing into bed for their night of hell. Slowly, all of them succumbed to their dreams. Grimes was once again shifting frequently in his bed. For the 6th year running, he was having the same dream that plagued him. As much as he prayed to have a good dream, like the memories of the Argent Dawn, they would never come. It was always that day when he killed all those people. Flashback. The air was filled with smoke, fire and screams of civilians. The sky was dark orange from all the fire. Grimes walked up the path from the village, having completed another task for his master. He now had to go meet one of the officers for his next mission. Grimes came to a long house with a few Death Knights standing outside it. He walked up to the one standing in the center. The Death Knight cast him a glance. So, you're the new guy, he asked. Obviously. Now give me my mission, Grimes said, glaring at the man. Well I would, but I want to see if you're ready for it. The Death Knight was surprised when he saw the recruit get into a fighting stance. He gave a smirk and raised his hand. Not by a fight, but I like your determination. Well, what do you want me to do? This next mission isn't really a mission, more like a task. I'm ready. Very well. Go in the house and kill the prisoner at the far end. Grimes entered the house and looked around. It was filled with prisoners from the Argent Dawn. He smelt the odor from filthy prisoners who hadn't bathed in who knows how long. Many bodies and corpses littered the cabin, blood pooling around them. Apparently some of the recruits had passed through here. Grimes noticed the prisoner who was at the other side of the cabin. She was facing away from him, looking at the wall. Grimes walked to her, his feet making small splashes in the pools of blood. Many of the remaining prisoners scuttled back to a wall, shaking in fear. He finally reached his target and stopped behind her. Come to finish the job, have you? She asked. Yes, now turn around and face me. Grimes ordered. The prisoner stood up and faced him. Grimes' eyes widened in shock. In front of him was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She had long dark blonde hair, green eyes, long slender legs, incredible curves, and a soft face. I'd like to stand for, she continued, looking at the Death Knight in front of her. She gave a gasp as she looked at the man in front of her. It couldn't be him, could it? Grimes? She asked, looking under his hood. I know of nobody that you speak, Grimes replied bitterly. Grimes, I'd recognize that face anywhere. What have they done to you, Grimes? Don't know, but I like it. You don't remember me, do you? Blasted scourge, they've tried to drain you of everything that made you a righteous force of reckoning. Every last ounce of good, everything that made you human. What the hell are you speaking about? This can't be you, Grimes. Don't you recognize me? I'll admit you look familiar, but I don't remember you. It's me, Ellen Stanbridge. Something inside Grimes' head pulsed when Ellen revealed who she was. He suddenly remembered many things that happened between them years ago. He clutched his head in pain as he felt the memories hit him like a punch to the face. Grimes remembered playing with her in the forest when they were kids. He remembered joining the Argent Dawn with her, shortly after his dad died. He remembered fighting alongside her against the Scourge. He remembered comforting her when his father died in a battle against the Scourge. He remembered making love to her that day as well. Then he remembered saving her, but dying in the process. Ellen, Grimes said, looking at her. He touched her face with his hand. She gave a small gasp from the contact. You're cold, Ellen replied. What's taking so long in there, Grimes? Called the officer. Think, Grimes. Think back. Try and remember the hills and valleys of Elwyn, where you were born. Remember the splendor of life, brother. You were a champion of the Alliance once. This isn't you. Shut up, Grimes hissed, clutching his head. He wrenched his sword out and began to swing. Listen to me, Grimes. You must fight the Lich King's control. He's a monster that wants to see this world, our world, in ruin. Don't let him accomplish his goals. You were once a hero and you can be again. Fight, damn you. Fight his control. What's going on in there? What's taking so long, Grimes? Called the officer again. There's no time for me. I'm done for. Finish me off, Grimes. Do it or they'll kill us both. Grimes, remember Elwyn. The world is worth saving. I can't do it, Grimes said, lowering his blade. It's okay. You must do it, Ellen said, hugging him. No, I won't kill you. Do it. Just don't forget what I told you. Fight him. Fight and kill that bastard master of yours. Grimes opened his mouth to reply, but stopped. She was right. Grimes embraced Ellen again before drawing his sword back. I love you, Ellen whispered in his ear. I love you too, Grimes replied. Grimes plunged his blade forward, piercing Ellen through her stomach. She gave a sharp intake of breath as the blade embedded itself into her. Ellen slumped forward in Grimes' arms and he caught her. He sat on the ground, holding Ellen's fragile body. Ellen opened her eyes, giving him a sad smile. She caressed his face before using the last of her strength to connect her lips to his. It was short-lived as Ellen's head fell away from his, her hand making a dull thump as it hit the ground. Grimes reached into her neck collar and pulled out her dog tags, bringing them to his lips. He set her body down gently, setting her dog tags in his pocket. He moved out of the house, dazed at killing his friend and late lover. Flashback end. Grimes bolted upright, gasping for air. Sweat ran down his face and chest. He buried his face in his hands, letting out a long sigh. The sun poked through the blinds of his window. It was going to be a long day. Hours previously, everyone had just gone to bed. Gaz was twitching in his sleep. His descent into his nightmare had begun. Flashback. Gaz had been playing with his older brother, James, outside. He had been pestering James to play with him for the better part of a fortnight. Gaz turned around and was tackled by James, who jumped from a bush. "Hey, too slow, Gaz," James said with a smirk. "You're too fast." Gaz shot back. James was about to retort, but stopped when he saw a man walking up to the house. The man was tall, balding and looked exhausted. The front door of the house opened and their mother stepped out. She was most likely the most beautiful woman in all of Elwyn Forest. She had long raven hair, slender legs, hourglass figure and an immense bust size. The woman looked at the man before her and gasped. "Tom?" she asked, unsure if her mind was playing tricks. The man looked up and gave a smile. "I'm home, Rachel," the man replied. Rachel lunged forward and tackled the man into a hug. "Boys, your father's home," Rachel called with happiness. "For real?" both chorused, running to their parents. The two tackled their father to the ground, grinning widely. Tom looked down at his sons and ruffled their hair. "How are my two little warriors doing?" Tom asked, standing up. "Great. We've been sparring each other daily," James replied. "That's great. Soon you'll be able to join your old man in the Argent Dawn." Rachel kissed Tom quickly before walking back to the house, swaying her hips seductively. "You got home just in time. I just finished cooking dinner," Rachel spoke. "Okay. Come on, boys. Let's go eat some dinner and hit the sack," Tom spoke, following Rachel inside. After dinner, the family went to bed. Gaz and James climbed into their beds just as they heard a loud moan from upstairs. "Are they doing?" Gaz began. "I really don't want to know, but probably," James replied, pulling his covers up. Gaz extinguished the candles, closing his eyes just as he heard his mother scream in pleasure. "Oh yes. Right there, Tom," Rachel screamed. "Lucky bastard," Gaz thought, before drifting off to sleep. Later that night, while everyone was asleep, the house door creaked open. Gaz awoke after hearing the door open. He quietly crept out of bed and exited the room. Gaz noticed the front door was ajar, and walked outside to close it. Just as his hand touched the knob, he fell to the ground out cold. Shortly after Gaz hit the ground, he regained consciousness. Gaz felt his head pulsing rapidly as he sat up. He stood up abruptly and grabbed the dagger he kept concealed at his waist. Gaz entered the house again, but he stepped in something wet. "What the hell?" Gaz muttered. He pulled out a match, lighting a nearby candle. He turned deathly pale at what he saw. James was lying there on the ground, a pool of blood under him. He covered his mouth as tears built up in his eyes. He heard a sword clang upstairs, followed by his mom's scream. Gaz quickly rushed up the stairs and saw the fray taking place. His father fell to the ground, a sword embedded in his stomach. Gaz looked up at the murderer and his eyes widened. It was the two next-door neighbors, the Griffin brothers. Gaz was always bullied by them and had the scars to prove it. "Nice job, bro. Now what should we do with her?" asked the shorter one. "Let's have some fun with her. I'll go finish off Gaz." "No. I'll do anything. Just don't kill my baby boy," Rachel pleaded. "Anything?" asked the short one. "Well, let's see how well you work that mouth of yours." He unbuckled his pants, dropping them to the floor. He forced Rachel to take his cock between her. The short one groaned as Rachel moved her up and down. "Get off my mom, you!" Gaz roared, tackling the taller brother. The two brothers looked at Gaz in surprise. He wrenched out his knife and shoved it into the taller brother's jaw, killing him slowly. "Bro!" the shorter one yelled. "You're next." Gaz spat, picking up his father's sword. The shorter one quickly pulled up his pants and charged Gaz. Gaz ducked from the swing, weaving around him. He threw a punch across the short one's face, hearing a crunch. That was my nose. You should have thought twice before killing my family and raping my mother. Rachel put her robe back on and watched the fight. She saw Gaz kill the elder brother in rage without remorse. Rachel was also surprised at how easily Gaz made the shorter one fear him. She unknowingly blushed as she looked at Gaz. Gaz was pretty much a carbon copy of his father, while James looked more like her. She winced at the wound in her stomach. The cut was deep and she was slowly bleeding out. Gaz delivered a couple more punches across the younger brother's face. The brother pulled out a knife to kill Gaz, but it flew out of his hand when Gaz parried it. Hey, Gaz said with a hushed tone, wrapping his hands around the brother's neck. I'll be coming to hell to kill you again, real soon. He threw the brother away, causing him to fall out of the window. He hurried over to his mom and scooped her up in his arms. Gaz felt something warm soaking his shirt. He whimpered knowing what it was. Gaz felt a soft hand touch his face. He looked down and saw his mom smiling at him. I'm proud of you, Gaz, Rachel stuttered. Stay with me, Mom. Everything's going to be all right, Gaz urged, tears falling down his face. No tears now, Rachel said, wiping his face. Mom, please, don't die on me. I'm sorry, Gaz. I'll be okay. It's my time to go. Your brother, father and I will be waiting for you. Rachel turned Gaz's head towards her. She smiled at the memories she had with Gaz. Had he been older and she wasn't married to Tom, she would have married him. Rachel could only hope the girl Gaz loved would not pass up on an offering he gave. She pressed her lips to his forehead. Goodbye, my precious son, Rachel whispered. Rachel's eyes slowly closed as her last breath left her. No, Gaz whispered, tears falling down his face. Muffled sobs escaped his lips as he buried his face in her hair. He lost them all. Flashback end. No, Gaz shouted, waking from his nightmare. He panted. Sweat ran down his face from remembering the dream. Gaz swore repeatedly, pounding his pillow before collapsing back on his bed. The sun poked through his window, glistening on his face. He sighed before climbing out of bed. Maybe some fresh air would help ease his mind. As everyone went to sleep hours previously, Mac felt himself becoming drowsy. He didn't want to fall asleep. If he did, then it would lead him to his worst memory. Mac's eyes fluttered a little before closing. Flashback. Mac and his girlfriend were stumbling out of a bar. Both of them laughing uncontrollably and sporting red faces. And stay out, yelled the bartender. Oh, fuck off, grasshopper. Mac shot back. Haley giggled and leaned onto Mac's side. Mac swayed slightly as he pulled her down the road. Cannonballs were hitting areas around them, but that was expected during a war. Mac tripped, pulling Haley with him. Haley leaned down and kissed him. It was sloppy due to the fact they were both drunk. Haley stood up gingerly, helping Mac to his feet. She leaned into his chest and sighed in bliss. Mac wrapped his arms around her, pulling her into a hug. He rested his cheek on the crown of her head. We should probably get out of the road, Haley murmured. Yeah, Mac replied, clasping her hand. Thunder rumbled overhead and lightning flashed across the sky. The two of them continued to walk back to Haley's house. Rain began soaking them both as it poured down in buckets. A loud whoosh soared over them, followed by a loud boom. A cannonball destroyed part of a house in front of them. We'd better hurry, Haley slurred. I know, we're almost there, Mac responded, quickening his pace. The two of them began to jog down the path, swaying all over the place. Haley's house was just in sight. Haley began to hurry ahead of Mac, who started to slow down. Mac bent down and vomited up some of the alcohol he consumed earlier. Haley, hold up, Mac called, hustling after her. Haley turned around just as she opened her door. Mac was less than 8 feet away before he heard another loud whoosh. The next thing Mac knew, he was blasted off his feet, landing a little ways back. Haley's house had taken a direct hit from a cannonball. The house erupted into flames, just as Mac blacked out. Mac's eyes slowly opened and he realized he was staring at a ceiling. Mac craned his neck to the side and noticed he was inside an infirmary. He sat up slowly, taking note that his hands were wrapped in bandages, as well as his forehead and face. Mac saw some doctors to his left, bustling over a person in the bed. "Try it again," one doctor spoke. "Okay," another replied. "God damn it, it's just not working. What's going on?" Mac asked aloud. The doctors turned to Mac and one walked over to him. "How are you feeling there, son?" the doctor inquired. "I'm fine, where's Haley?" Mac replied. "You mean the girl that was with you?" "Yeah, is she okay?" Mac, I don't know how to say this but, the second doctor spoke. "But what, where's Haley?" "Well, she's dead, Mac." "What? Don't give me that bullshit, you hear me?" Mac roared. "Mac, she's right there. We did everything we could, but she didn't pull through," the first doctor said sadly. Mac turned his head a little further and noticed Haley. She looked so pale and stiff, her lips were blue in color. "Haley, I know you can hear me, Haley," Mac said, clambering out of his bed. He stumbled over to her bed and clasped her hand. Mac gave a sharp intake of breath when he clasped her hand. It was cold as ice. Mac lowered his head, tears building up in his eyes. He rested his head by Haley's hand, shaking with a sob in between. Mac heard someone calling his voice. He raised his head, and turned to see the doctors mouthing his name. But slowly, their voices began to change into more familiar voices he'd heard before. Flashback end. "Mac, come on. It's time to get up," Grimes voiced. "Mac, get up," Gaz barked. Mac groaned and opened his eyes slowly. The sun poked between his bedroom curtains, stinging his eyes. He sat up with a stretch and turned to his door. He saw Gaz and Grimes looking at him. "Morning, Sleeping Beauty," Grimes said with a smirk. "It's morning already," Mac grumbled. "Obviously, otherwise we would still be in bed now, wouldn't we?" Gaz replied. Mac opened his mouth to retort but stopped. He hopped out of bed and walked to his closet, putting on some old clothes to fight in. Mac walked out of the room to see Gaz, Naruto and Grimes waiting for him. "Well, let's go and pass this damn test," Mac said with a bored tone. Naruto, Mac and Gaz made their way to the training ground. Grimes walked off saying he was going to find Kakashi so he wouldn't be late. As the three of them arrived, they saw Sakura and Sasuke already there waiting. When Sasuke looked up he glared at the three of them. Sakura, being the fangirl that she was, glared at the three of them as well. The three Death Knights brushed their glares aside and sat under a tree. Each of them pulled out an apple and some bread. Seeing this, Sakura stomped over to them with her hands on her hips. "What the hell are you idiots doing? Sensei told us not to eat breakfast." Sakura shrieked. "Bite me, Banshee," Gaz replied, giving her a cold glare. "What did you say? Now, this isn't how teammates should treat each other," said a voice. Team 7 looked up to see their senseis standing on the tree branches. Grimes hopped off the branch, landing beside the three Death Knights. Kakashi jumped down and looked at the team in front of him. He smiled before digging in his pocket for something. There was a low tinkling sound as Kakashi pulled out 4 silver bells. "Now, Grimes and I will be holding 2 bells. In order to get them, you need to come at us with the intent to kill," Kakashi spoke, tossing 2 bells to Grimes. "But sensei, we can hurt you," Sakura said nervously. "Is she that fucking stupid?" thought the Death Knights. "We aren't Junin for nothing, Sakura," Grimes replied, hooking the bells to his belt. "I guess, but there's another thing." "What would that be?" Kakashi asked. "There are only 4 bells and there are 5 of us." "Ah, so you noticed," Kakashi said with an smile. "Well, it's simple. The person who doesn't get a bell is sent back to the academy." Naruto, Gaz and Mac all smirked at the statement. This test was going to be about teamwork. The three of them, even though they strong individuals, cannot defeat a Junin alone. If they worked as a team, they would be unstoppable. Grimes pulled out a timer and set it on a wooden stake. You have until noon to get a bell, Grimes said. And, start. The 5 genin hopped away into different positions. Naruto crept through the bushes to find Mac and Gaz kneeling down. He hurried over to them and began to devise a plan. Okay boss, what's the plan here? Asked Gaz. There are 4 bells, both Grimes and Kakashi have 2. Before we do anything, I think it would be best to study their fighting style. So one of us is going to fight one of them. Once we figure out their tricks, we will move in for the bells. Naruto said, tapping his fingers on the ground. Sounds like a good idea, so who's going to attack Kakashi? Mac inquired. I'll do it, I want to try out a technique I learned just recently, Gaz replied. We'll let Grimes take care of Sasuke and Sakura. Let's move. The 3 Death Knights shunshined away into separate parts of the field. Naruto hid in the tree line to the south, Mac was concealed inside some nearby bushes, and Gaz was hiding behind a rock. Gaz took a deep breath and stepped out from behind the rock. He noticed Kakashi had his face buried in an orange book. Gaz frowned at this and shook his head in disapproval. Kakashi looked up at him before returning to his book. Well, you seem confident, Kakashi stated. Let's see what you got, Cyclops. Gaz barked. He felt his unholy presence kick in and he dashed towards Kakashi. Kakashi was surprised at the speed of the genin in front of him. He ducked under a punch from Gaz, who quickly retaliated with an axe kick. Kakashi swerved around the kick and threw a punch at Gaz. Gaz parried the fist with insane speed, causing Kakashi's eye to widen in shock. How is he so fast? He isn't using any chakra, but his speed is about the same level as Guy's. Kakashi thought. Gaz jumped back and threw a few shuriken at Kakashi, who was distracted. He then summoned his sword and charged him. Kakashi snapped out of his stupor to see shuriken flying towards him. He quickly pulled out a kunai and parried all the shuriken, only to find Gaz in front of him with his blade coming in for a strike. Nani? Kakashi gasped. He parried the blade just in time, but the hit caused his arm to go numb. What a shame, I would have thought you'd be able to kick my, Gaz taunted. Don't get cocky, kid. Kakashi retorted as he charged at Gaz. Bingo, Gaz muttered. He waited until Kakashi was less than 5 feet away, then swerved around him. He raised his palm in the air and released his runic power. Anti-magic zone, Gaz whispered. A purple dome surrounded Gaz and Kakashi. Kakashi was a little confused that Gaz had trapped himself inside the dome. Kakashi decided to use the Shinju Zanshu and began making hand seals quickly. Kakashi smirked, thinking that Gaz would panic, but to his surprise, Gaz was grinning broadly. Why can't I use my chakra? Kakashi asked himself. Well, that's because of my dome here, Gaz replied. It traps the user and the enemy inside, disabling any magic or, in your case, chakra. Kakashi's eye widened in shock and he hopped away from Gaz, who slashed at him. Gaz narrowed his eyes. He had about 8 seconds until the dome dropped. Gaz lunged at Kakashi, throwing a strike with his blade. The swing was too late, the barrier fell and Kakashi hopped back, narrowly missing the attack. There was a loud boom as the ground where Kakashi was a second earlier exploded, leaving a crater. Damn it, I missed him. Gaz cursed. What the hell was that attack? Kakashi asked Gaz. One of my favorites, Plague Strike. Gaz shunshined away and landed by Naruto, who was grinning at him. He told Naruto of the weakness and he nodded his head in understanding. Naruto and Gaz shunshined again, this time landing beside Mac. So what's the plan? Mac asked. We're doing an all-out assault on him, Gaz spoke. I'm going to slow him down with chains of ice. Then we'll rush at him and Gaz will use the anti-magic zone again. When that happens, we'll use melee to tire him out enough for one of us to get the bells, Naruto said, looking at the two of them. Okay, let's make him holler. Mac said, standing up. Meanwhile, Sasuke and Sakura had been watching the fight between Gaz and Kakashi. Sasuke was seething in rage at Gaz's abilities, which were far more superior to his. Sakura was glaring at Gaz the whole time. How dare that doby steal Sasuke-kun's light? Sakura hissed. How does that loser have such power? I must have it, not some lowlife like him. Sasuke spat with malice. Sasuke decided to go find Grimes and steal a bell from him. He wasn't a ninja, so he should be a piece of cake. There was no way he could beat him, an Uchiha. Sakura noticed Sasuke's chakra signature fading away and began to follow him. I'm going to help Sasuke-kun get a bell from that freak of a sensei and then he'll love me. Sakura said with glee. I wouldn't be too sure about that, a voice whispered in her ear. Sakura turned around and came face to face with Grimes. Grimes smirked at her and went through a series of hand signs. Sakura was still in shock and remained frozen to the spot. This is what happens when you freeze up on a mission, Sakura. Grimes said, finishing the last sign. Narakumi. Sakura noticed Grimes was gone and she was alone. She let out a sigh of relief and stood up slowly. There was a rustle in the bushes that caused her to stop dead. Sakura, Sasuke croaked. Sakura's fear immediately drained and she turned around in joy. Sasuke-kun, she said in glee, but it turned to horror. Tears began to swell up in her eyes at the sight. Sasuke was pierced with multiple shuriken and kunai, one of his eyes was missing and blood was running all over his body. Goddamn you, Sakura, you got me and the others killed. Sasuke shouted. He slumped against the tree coughing up blood. I'm sorry, Sasuke-kun. Please just hang on. Sakura wailed. Fuck you, you were useless. You froze up in combat causing me and the team to end up in this state. A shinobi doesn't freeze like that and let their teammates die. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Good luck, you'll need it. They're too damn powerful. Please don't die, Sasuke-kun. Pathetic, that's what you are. A pathetic girl that shouldn't even be called a kunoichi, goddamn you, Sakura. Sasuke finished, falling to the ground dead. Sakura screamed in anguish and horror, fainting to the ground. Grimes sat up in the tree, glaring down at the kunoichi. He shook his head and shunshined away to find the Uchiha. That was most probably the weakest kunoichi he had ever met. Back with Kakashi and the Death Knights, things were a little different. Kakashi was being forced on the defensive, not being allowed to attack any of them. He was exhausted and he wasn't going to be able to remain like this much longer. He saw they were working together, but he had no idea that they were this strong. What really surprised him was their plan. First, Naruto appeared behind him and used some type of ice jutsu, causing him to move at snail pace. Then all three charged at him and the Gaz summoned another dome. If they could do this to him without much difficulty, they were probably the most outstanding team out of the academy. Kakashi pulled out a second kunai and blocked both Naruto's and Mac's attacks. Zano. Now. Mac barked. Gaz darted around Kakashi and wrenched the bells from his belt. Mac and Naruto hopped away with Gaz between them taking a defensive position. Kakashi looked up at them with his eye smile. Excellent job you three, Kakashi said, putting his kunai away just as the bell rang. The five genin sat in front of Grimes and Kakashi who were looking at them with disappointed looks. Sasuke had been humiliated, Grimes ended up freezing him in a wall of ice. While Sakura was still recovering from the genjutsu Grimes used on her. Kakashi sighed and glared at the team in front of them. They had shown the worst teamwork he had ever seen in his life. Granted Naruto, Gaz and Mac worked as a team and excelled in getting a bell, they didn't bother to include or tell the other two about the test's true meaning. I am very disappointed in all of you, Kakashi said. We understood the meaning of the test, you bastard. Gaz snapped angrily. Gaz, calm down and let him explain. Grimes said looking at Gaz. While you did understand the meaning of the test, you didn't fully work as a team. All three of us, Mac began, but was cut off. I know that. But all five of you were supposed to do this together. If you haven't noticed, Cyclops. The Uchiha's ego and attitude would only cause him to blow us off completely. And as for the Banshee, she is his follower. Mac retorted. I'm sure that they would have been willing to help. I don't need anyone's help, I'm an Uchiha. I'm an elite, I don't need help from people like you, you'd only hold me back. Sasuke spat. See what I mean? Mac said, pointing at Sasuke. Sasuke-kun's right, he doesn't need any help from losers. Sakura yelled. Enough. Grimes roared. Bottom line, the test was about teamwork. You three did an excellent job, so I'll pass you. What about us? Sakura shrieked. I'd fail your sorry right here. Grimes snapped. You fell for the easiest genjutsu in the book. You didn't do jack, all you did was look for the Uchiha. That, right there, shows that you'd only be a hindrance to everyone if we were on a mission. Grimes continued before rounding on Sasuke. Now you, Mr. High and Mighty. I don't care about who you are or who your family was, I am your sensei and you will show me some respect. Now pull that stick out of your and get off your path for revenge, it'll get you nowhere in life. We've got a long way to go as a team, Kakashi spoke. All of you pass, but you need to cooperate with each other from now on. Come and follow me for a second. Everyone began to follow Kakashi through the woods until they came to a clearing. In the center of the clearing was a stone with names written all over it. Kakashi turned back to the group with a solemn look. This is the Heroes' Memorial Stone, it has the names of shinobi on here who gave their lives for causes. My teammate, Obito and Sensei, the fourth Hokage are both on this stone here. I will never forget the thing Obito said to me before he died. Kakashi looked at the group. Those who quit are trash, but those who abandon their friends are worse than trash. I have something to say to you all as well, Grimes voiced. Before he died, my dad told me every soldier has two families. Those you raise and those you raise hell with. All of us are now a family. We'll meet at the bridge here tomorrow for our first mission, Kakashi spoke. Don't forget anything either of us said to you just now. With that, Grimes and Kakashi shunshined away. Naruto, Gaz and Mac decided to go and get some lunch, leaving Sakura and Sasuke alone. Sasuke turned to walk home but was stopped by Sakura. Sasuke-kun, I was wondering if you, Sakura began. No, he replied curtly before walking off.